Welcome to Lovecars on the grid because it always does it early. It's telling me on my screen we're setting up your meeting, but it always does it early. So if it is early, instead of having blank video, unbelievable. Oh, teething troubles.
My tweet said, assuming Paul presses the right buttons, by the way.
This meeting's been live streamed. Oh, we've been live streamed.
Oh, God.
No, we're
Are
not.
we on then, you mean, after
No,
all
we're
that?
not. Yes, we are. Host live on YouTube. Oh, if you are listening, welcome.
I said,
I
check my
don't think we
tweet.
are. Okay. I'm welcome to Love Cars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. There's quite a lot to go through, actually. What an incredible weekend in the world of motorsport, particularly with the likes of the Formula One, where Tiff was in the grandstands taking a look at the enthralling Belgian Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz announced he's joining from Williams, and we're going to have a little bit of a prediction. Tiff and I are going to go through it as well. What we think the 2025 it is live. There we go. We've got three watching as well. Hello to everybody. We predict what the 2025 lineup's going to look like because there's lots of movers and shakers. The Belgium ups and downs, Formula 2, Formula 3, Porsche Supercup as well. Plus, we'll have a quick chat about BTCC. There was always drama at Croft. Now, I can't see the questions today. I'm sorry. So, for some reason, it's live, which is great. Welcome, everybody.
But catch them later if we can.
So,
let's go straight to Belgium.
So, how was
everybody's talking about Belgium?
You weren't in VIP, you were in the grandstands. What? And I think that's a really good place to watch.
That's exactly what I'm about to say. It's I did it at Silverstone every year with the BRDC, although this year I was in a corporate box again, but just in the grandstands. And you get so much of a feeling, the excitement and the real fans when they're cheering for drivers every time they go past. And you haven't got too much loud commentary. You're having to follow the race all the time to work out who's leading and who's catching. And we've got a little screen you could look at sort of 100 yards away or 200 yards away. Now, we were on the outside of the first corner of the hairpin. And then the fascinating thing is there, you can see them disappearing down the hill when they get the DRS. And then you can just see them exiting the Eau Rouge Pouhon. So you can see how close they are. Because they're really close, you then look across your little screen to see, will the overtake happen, And you work it out yourself. And it just takes me back. Every time I do watch a race as a spectator, I enjoy it so much more than television or Paddock Club or loads of screens, because you are there. And being such a brilliant Grand Prix, we had guests that never been to Grand Prix before, and they're now converted fans that, just love the race.
Because
there's so much going on.
Grand Prix can be boring to watch in the stand because, like you just said, you just, especially there, 2-minute laps as good as or thereabouts. Yeah. So it can be a bit boring, but it was very exciting to watch on TV as well, I have to say.
Well, the season's building. This is what we go. Max hasn't won a race. That's 4 races without Max Verstappen winning. How about that? 4 races. But of course, it was delightful to have the Dutch fans there, been a bit quieter than they normally are. We had to sit through this pre-race stuff that goes on. I mean, when I'm watching television, there was a dance. They were a huge break dancing thing went on for about 20 minutes. They could have had a proper marching band or something from the local, Belgium.
But get over it. Breakdancing is now in the Olympics.
I know.
It's an Olympic sport. So squash is not, I still believe it's not, and breakdancing is. Go work that one out.
But so that dancing is only for the people in the one main grandstand of the Paddock Club on the other side of the track. Everybody else is trying to look at a screen and listen to the music anyway. So the build-up was weird as well. It's such a shame for me because I think the build-up could be so much more exciting and dramatic. Just if you talk Formula One over the PA system, and talked about some of what's coming up, who's going to get to the corner first, and
that's a good point. Get a Harry Benjamin or someone like that, just to talk about like they do at Goodwood. At Goodwood, they're out there and they're interviewing all the fans and stuff. And they're streaming it live at Goodwood at the Festival Speed. That's a very good idea.
And more telling the crowd about team tactics, about tyres, which they don't know anything about. They're watching breakdance, so they don't know that white tyres are the hard ones and yellow tyres. If you're in the grandstands, although young Constant Juris, Ben Constant, he was doing a good job on the PA when he had a chance between the Belgians talking as well. So there was good PA as well.
Good.
But yeah, so Q1, just to go back to the build-up, we lost the 2 Haas's in Q1 and Logan, of course, poor Logan on his way, and Zhao and Yuki. And so when people don't qualify well because he was going to be at the back of the grid anyway, you sort of wonder, well, did he really not try? Is that, because obviously Ricciardo was 14th or something. So Yuki went out in Q1. Q2, of course, Stroll crashed.
Just in terms of that, I think the fact that he went out in Q1, you got to give it a go, and you got to. It was wet, so you weren't really going to learn anything. However, keep those tires. If it was a dry quali and you're going to be at the back, you want to keep those tires, surely. So maybe there's some method in some madness, but not when it's wet.
Saving. Well, we lost. Stroll crashed out. Big spin. Wow. I thought he'd held it for a minute. 360 spin up at the top of Eau Rouge at Peugeot.
Bit of
just clobbered the wall.
Yeah.
We lost the other Sauber. Bottas went out as well. Then Gasly went out. Ricciardo went out. The big thing, of course, was, will Checo Perez get into the top 10? Will he make Q3? And he made it by 3/1000ths of a second. Poor Alexander Albon lost out. He was 11th of the grid. Well, he wasn't 11th in the end because he was 10th, because, of course, we had the Max drop back 10 places. But Checo scraped his way through, but then went and qualified third. But the match, that Q3 was so showery weather, 1 minute, you never knew, when the conditions at their best. I think it was pot luck, really, who got the extra half a second quicker or slower, because if they're out on the track at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Treacherous conditions in those cars around Eau Rouge and stuff. I mean, great entertainment.
Cool, they're ballsy.
Max pleased them all by being quickest. Although Perez was sixth.
You know what? I mean, credit where credit's due. He is just exceptional in the wet, isn't it? Unbelievable. Because you've got Lando, George, Lewis. There's a load of the Brits obviously brought up driving in the rain, but Max, masterclass.
But because Checo was still 0.6 behind, although he was third on the grid, he was still 0.6 slower. But of course, Max had to go down 10 places for the new thing, so we were really looking forward to the race. He started 11th. So we had Leclerc on pole. It was Ferrari. The Ferrari have often gone well at Spa relative to other tracks. And of course, Checo is now on the front row, on the outside, because also at Spa they do keep pole on the inside because it's such a short run to the tight hairpin. So it's not the sort of more conventional now if the pole is on the outside, which is always ridiculous. They've got to stop that, I think, because we've seen so many races, haven't we? When Lando gets Oscar in Hungary, where the pole man, first thing the pole man does, Barcelona, is pull over to the inside. Well, I think we should go back, to be honest, because that happens every time. We should go back.
So what should it go back to?
Well, the fastest man takes the inside for the first corner.
Yeah.
So
irrespective whether, so if it's on the left, you get it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you get left inside corner. That's how
that used to happen. Did it?
Yeah, and then I think some tracks, the outside line, the inside line it's not on the racing line. So there's always been this problem. People say, "Oh God, I'm on the inside for the first corner. I've got no grip off the start." And that was always a huge thing in Hungary. And I was thinking back to this because Oscar made his great start. It's almost disappeared. They've got so much control over their clutches and computerized clutches. Because anyone on the inside line at Hungary 20 years ago would lose 2 places before turn 1 because the left-hand line went and the right-hand line spun their wheels. I mean, the fact that they've got 1,000 horsepower or something and nobody spins wheels off a grid, it just shows how much the computers are working rather than the driver. I mean, I don't actually. I need to invest. I think they got 2 releases, haven't they? Some of these clutches. You let the first bit go for the standing start. Then once you got that go, you let the second. So it's always this second phase they talk about. So it's very much computers controlling your start.
I know Lewis is very famous for covering his left hand below, so he puts it over so he doesn't hit something by accident.
Yeah, I
so
know.
He
did something wrong, did he? I think that was like the pit lane or the stall, anti-stall he hit once. But no, I mean, sitting down there, watching the grid come towards us, with Lewis and Lando on the second row, Oscar and George, the sort of number 2 drivers, well, not really, but the third row, then Sainz and Alonso towards the back, and Ocon and Albert. It was just brilliant because I was just watching Lewis, because that to me was, can Lewis, will Perez get through, even in second place? But Lewis launched his dive down the inside. And I watched them then disappear away from us while Lando was going out. And they were live. It's so much more exciting. And I saw Lando kicking the gravel up, because he went wide, being too safe, is what he said. And then we saw Lewis and Checo disappearing side by side down towards Eau Rouge. Poor old Lando, he lost weight. He went from 4th down to about 7th.
It wasn't his race, was it?
And then, again, with another, beating himself up. How many times we said we highlighted this last week? And that's now 4 races or 5 races on the trot with Lando says, we should have done better. We could have done better. We didn't do better. I made the wrong, It's a shame, really, that the kid's in this sort of awkward position, but not as awkward maybe as Checo's position is way more
it's done. We'll come on to that in a minute, but it's done.
Well, yeah, we'll come on to that.
Yeah.
But we then had, this almost, I mean, we didn't, because Lewis just kept on pulling away, and Leclerc pulled away, and then Oscar pulled away. But initially, we had the 8 star drivers in a DRS, for the lead.
Incredible. When was the last time we saw that?
I don't know.
It's people could genuinely win.
Yeah, it was usually from 10th place downwards. You get the DRS trains, for the midfielders. But it was just electrifying racing to watch. Because it's always tense. There's not much overtaking, and I always say, although we complain that these cars can't overtake, but we do. It's not like Formula Fords or Caterhams. Adding Caterhams, it is a Grand Prix. They're not supposed to overtake on every lap, but there were a couple of good moves going up the hill, and the crowd were all cheering, and the atmosphere was growing. And the other thing I pointed as a spectator, which was something that surprised me. So I was watching the 8 disappear. And then you wait for the next little pack to come through, led by Alonso, I think, most of the time. And that was a DRS train. Who was ahead of Alonso? Someone else was holding them up at once. So maybe it was Ocon. But how drab the cars looked. And it was disappointing and worrying because they mostly got the black carbon because they're trying to not paint things. But even so, I mean, I've written down what I was feeling was Alonso. I mean, it's a dark green. A lot of these cars are brilliant close up. If you're in a lit studio with photography, and you're there, the painting. But so a very dark green thing led. Then these drab-looking Alpines that have been painted. Someone I saw in the press said, "Oh, the brilliant Wolverine colours, whatever Wolverine is." It's some TV. Why are they suddenly? How much money are they getting paid to suddenly paint all their cars?
So it launched on the 25th of last Thursday. Wolverine, Deadpool Wolverine, a movie.
Well, from 100 yards away, 50 yards away, they look drab. It's just a drab mess.
Yeah.
Whereas, of course, they're pink. These Alpines, we knew we could see them because they're pink. So we had the drab
pink for ages.
Wolverines. What?
They haven't been pink for ages. BWT.
Yeah, bits of pink still. What?
No, it's all blue. Alpine's all blue and white.
They've still got their bit of BWP pink.
Have they?
Got me worried. Okay. So we had the drab Wolverines, which I didn't know what they were. Spectator, you couldn't tell it was Wolverine. There was no advert. You couldn't read anything, from that far away. The dark blue Williams, a bit drab, a lot of black carbon and thing. The Haas's, which at least were white, but sort of, I don't know, just had Haas written on the side. But then there are the green Saubers, but it's just a shockingly awful green. I don't know. Do you think it looks? It just doesn't. There's something about the green that's just wrong. If you think of a Lotus green, they could have that lovely light-coloured Lotus green. I mean, Aston Martin sort of got the BRM dark green.
There's only certain colours you can do over carbon fibre. Pagani told me this. It's very hard to get. Well, yeah, but
maybe some stripes, a bit of bright fluorescent stripes or something. I can see pink. I saw some pink.
So there is some pink. So those of you that are watching on YouTube, by the way, thank you for joining us. But we can't see the comments. So if you're shouting at me saying there is pink, you're right. So there you go. There's some pink on the Alpine. Not much. Not like it used to be. Not like Harry King's Porsche Supercup.
No, that's the BWT again. But that's what struck me. And I sort of totally lost interest in the drab-looking train because there's so much going up in front. But although you can't see, they disappear for 2 minutes, you're watching the screens for the gaps, who's in DRS. And the race just got better and better. And then, of course, we had George staying out and Lewis catching by half a second a lap.
You couldn't get past him. No, it wasn't even. What didn't even look like getting past him.
Well,
after catching him. Yeah, catching by half a second. It's just it's a done deal. George's tyres are gone. Lewis is on fresher tyres, and he's going to blast past him.
The funny thing was that we were sort of watching. As I said, we watched them disappear close and then go through Eau Rouge, very tiny. We could see them, and I was always surprised how the gap had gone out. Well, they always say, they follow closer. They can't follow. They can't follow close enough. So they couldn't go. You couldn't go through Eau Rouge on the gearbox. The car in front,
okay.
The front would probably wash out. So they couldn't actually. So there weren't as many DRS drive-bys. I think they moved the DRS upper straight. Didn't quite have as long because Piastri, that brilliant overtaking manoeuvre by Leclerc, it was very much right into the braking zone that you went down the left-hand side. There was no drive-by involved at all with that overtake. But
you wonder if he got past him just a little bit earlier, was a little bit more aggressive, whether he would have gone on to win it because he was only one lap away really from. But it was very exciting.
The crowd, how much they love Lewis. Big Ferrari shout out. We didn't seem to be in a very Max area because I think the Max fans, the Orange Army, all the way up the straight there. A huge cheers for Lewis, which quite surprised me. We're in Holland and Belgium. and very little for George. When George, suddenly became in the lead, it was quite surprising that there was no great applause every time he went by.
I think a lot of the die-hard fans, me included, you just want the best to keep winning. Schumacher, Senna, Prost, and Lewis Hamilton. So it's so good to see them winning. But I'm going to contradict myself, not Max Verstappen, because him winning every race was boring. But so not every race, Lewis.
Well, not all of Max's wins were boring. But the fascinating thing was Max was just stuck in the DRS train. He couldn't move anywhere. We were expecting fireworks, from diving down the inside, but he never. And funny enough, there was a moment when Checo dropped back to about fifth, and he had George behind him.
Yeah,
and then Max had caught George. Yeah. But of course, Max couldn't overtake George because George had
DRS.
Yeah, Perez's DRS. I was saying to these people, they've got to make Perez pull over. And eventually, of course, Perez did pit, but then George pulled away instead of Max getting him.
George pitted after. Perez pitted after George got past him, so Max was behind him, and I was just waiting for those team orders to say get out of the way, and then they said box, Checo. So, but it was a very, very exciting race. Like you said, any one of 8 people could have won that race.
End, yeah.
Well,
and again,
any one of 7 people.
When Lando caught up Max, that was the other big thing I wanted. This is it. We're going to get Lando overtaking
fireworks.
Max. Yeah. And we'd all be up and cheering in the grandstands. But again, I watched that. He kept on getting close because he caught up from, 5 seconds behind after he stopped a bit later than others. But again, every time I looked at him going up the hill through Eau Rouge, Lando just dropped back 4 or 5 car lengths, so he couldn't do the DRS pass.
Would you want to be on the back of someone's gearbox doing 180 up Eau Rouge?
Yes, of course I would. Get in there. And of course, Checo's final insult was when Sainz took the last of the top team's place off for 7th, and then they made Checo come in and do 1 lap to get a point for fastest lap. The final insult.
But that there's points because Red Bull are not going to have it all their own way, and if they end up losing this Constructors' Championship off the back of Checo underperforming for the first half of the season, they're going to be kicking themselves. Those odd points will stack up. That still counts, doesn't it? The 1 point that still counts to the Constructors' Championship, even though it's past lap. Yeah, of course it does.
I presume so.
It does. So. It's your total points. And then poor old George at the end. I mean, that's a heartbreak, isn't it? Because you trust your engineers, you trust the whole thing. I mean,
he was so excited. I've never seen any driver quite so excited. When he came in the pit, he was in the car, just animated beyond belief, and then ran to that. I mean, they all do that run and jump, but he ran 100 yards faster than the other driver and leapt into his mechanic's arms.
I'll put my back out if I did that.
It was a mighty drive, with the older tyres. But I think, Lewis caught him up quite quickly. Maybe Lewis actually overdid his tyres from trying to catch. I think that's when, by the time he caught him, I think although George's tyres were older, Lando's were actually more, worn out, not worn out, but exhausted. So, yeah, it was brilliant. And of course, we had Oscar, catching up every lap as well. We were all looking at that. It was great atmosphere. Really enjoyed the Grand Prix from the grandstands.
And then the spanner in the works for George, 1.5 kilograms underweight. And people are saying, but normally they'll do a whole lap, cool down lap, and they'll pick up a lot of debris. But that's not 1.5
Mercedes knew that. The engineer admitted they knew that, And again, I think it's more that the tyre, the one maybe the engineer didn't concentrate on was the fact that the tyre was so worn out. The tyre weighed less because it lost more rubber.
I don't know that either.
I don't know. No, that is a kilo or something, or half.
They're heavy. They are heavy, but they. But what a shame! What a shame after coming from 6 to win, and this is his first race he's really won properly, and taken away from him. But Lewis,
no Red Bull on the podium, even once poor old George had gone, because then Charles came on the podium, so it was great. So you got a Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari podium,
amazing, and that Mercedes have won 2 out of the last 3 races. That's incredible, isn't it? So who else has won? Mercedes have won the last 2 out of the last 3. Lando and Miami. Are we going back that far? And somebody
Lando
else.
And Oscar's won. They've won 2. Mercedes have won 3. Ferrari won 2.
Wow!
I think
it's going to be exciting. Please leave it don't play around with the regulations. Leave it like this for a couple.
We've got it for 1 more year. I know we've got it for 1 more year, but of course the money invested by Audi and Ford Honda coming back in, making their new horrible 50% hybrids, but they won't dare cancel. So then, of course, we came to the Twitter started showing up the post-race analysis of Perez, Checo. There's been a Twitter film of Horner talking to Danny Ricciardo, and Ricciardo sort of turning and walking away, looking with almost it wasn't the full smile, but a smug thing. That Ricciardo's in for Zandvoort. This is, what most people are thinking, and I think it's been decided today. Apparently, it's today. I mean, it could be any second now. We're looking at our phones.
They cannot afford to lose this constructors' championship because of Perez. And Perez, when did he finish in the end? We finished 9th or 10th?
8th.
No, 8th. Yeah.
The last of the big four. And again, Aston Martin pretty drab and disappointing. Drab looking from the grandstand and disappointing because they had a lot of updates, I think, for this, but obviously trying to get updates working with the wet qualifying and the wet practice sessions, because Mercedes took off their new floors because they were bouncing up and down too much. So yeah, but obviously the Aston updates didn't work. But he just took 9th? Alonso still got 9th ahead of Ocon in 10th, and Ricciardo he was 11th. He got the fast point because when George was disqualified, Ricciardo got 10th.
Did you have more beers than Perez had points?
Yeah, probably.
Belgian beers, chocolate, and steak.
Good trip. So, I had a rare burger. I've tweeted about my rare burger.
I saw your rare burger.
I've got more quotes and comments on the red burger saga than all my Formula One quotes on Twitter. So maybe we should just talk about burgers. We'll probably get more viewers and hits if we talk about rare burgers.
We are very specialised with a motorsport podcast, so thank you everyone for joining us. But we do love it. Formula 2, what was that like?
Well, no, just go back. Let's do the Formula. Before we go back to Formula 2, I think we've got to stay Formula 1 and discuss these drivers' lineups because I've got them all written down. So first, do you think Ricciardo will be in Checo's place in Zandvoort, which is the gossip?
Yes. For the second half of the season, he'll be there.
Okay, so we agree on that.
Hang on, let's go to the top one first. Is Max Verstappen going to? Are we talking? I thought you were talking 2025. So I've done all this analysis.
There. Yeah, we'll get it. That's next. No, the only thing this year is just what's going to happen for the rest of this year, because we have this change, this room at Ricciardo. So I'm putting Ricciardo in the Red Bull and Lawson in the RB for the rest of the year.
How exciting for Liam Lawson! What a lucky boy.
So. And then
you don't think Checo will go? You don't think Checo will go there and keep the money coming in from South America, if that's what it is, or Central America?
We never know, because someone sort of even tweeted that Ricciardo brings money. This is sort of who brings money. I know Ronnie Peterson, way back in the days, brought money. One of the greatest drivers ever. So you don't really know how much these decisions are about finance. That's the sad thing. We can't judge. But so if that happens, but then Checo's out for the year. So now we're looking at 2020. So we've now got today announced. We've now got Sainz. So the big keys there. So Sainz has gone to Williams, which surprised me. On my bit of paper here, I've got him at a nice cushy Audi job for 5 years with big, huge paychecks, which I doubt if Williams could have offered him the sort of money that Audi were. So I'm quite surprised. I'm genuinely surprised he's going to Williams. So that concludes that. So I've got the list of teams now. So for next year, I've got still 4 places not sold, which is Red Bull, because we're not sure what's happening there. This is for next year now. Red Bull, RB, Sauber stroke Audi, Mercedes have still got a place. Alpine have got a place. And the drivers looking for seats now that are still there are obviously, well, I think Hadjar's been mentioned as Red Bull.
Yeah, well, he didn't do himself any harm over the weekend in Formula 2.
Exactly. Liam Lawson, Ricciardo, Bottas, Zhao, Teo Pourchaire, that seems to be completely forgotten despite being an Alpine driver and going off and winning Formula 2 and Formula 3. Then the Kimi Antonelli story, Jack Doohan, I'm a big fan of. K-Mag out at the moment, Sargent out. In fact, the only new person in is Ollie Behrman and the Haas. So if we go through the list, so next year now, Ferrari, Leclerc and Hamilton, McLaren and Lando and Oscar.
So,
So
see, I think the only given really, well, there's maybe a couple of given, but Ferrari is the only absolute dead cert because Red Bull is not a dead cert.
McLaren is. Or you think they'll steal a McLaren
No,
drive?
you're right. McLaren is. You're right.
Aston Martin are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Haas are.
Keep going.
Ocon's gone to Haas last week. So that's
And
definite.
Ollie Behrman, but
yeah, so that's definite.
okay.
And Williams, Albon, and Sainz is now definite.
No, it's oh yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's happened today.
Yuki. Where's
no, Yuki's still in RB.
Oh
He's
yeah,
signed for RB.
Yeah, sorry, Visa Cash App RB. Yeah.
So back to the Red Bull pairing first. So next year, all we've got is Max in a Red Bull, a Yuki and an RB. And the sort of Red Bull definitely don't want Yuki. We don't want Yuki. We don't want Yuki. I don't know why they don't want Yuki, which I think he's upset by. If so, I'm going to say that Ricciardo will do a good enough job, and he's great PR. Red Bull. Because Max probably isn't brilliant PR, but he doesn't bother. He doesn't like to do all the extras, does he? But
he doesn't like people,
entertaining the town. And then I'm putting Lawson in for Red Bull. So I think what's going to happen for the second half of this season, Ricciardo in the Red Bull and Lawson in the RB will be repeated next year.
Okay. What about Max? So Max is definitely going to be there?
You still think he might not? We haven't done the top of my list, I think. Before we get to drivers, Adrian Newey. We've still got the Newey. You've got to decide now where he's going after your great insight to Ferrari.
My definite 100%, 1,000,000% Ferrari. That's looking a bit iffy now, isn't it? When Clarkson said he's looking at our house in Chipper Norton.
So where are you putting?
I'm still putting Newey Ferrari.
Okay, I'm putting him in Aston Martin.
That's probably
right. So what's your Red Bull? You think Max might go somewhere?
I genuinely do. I think that I think he's going to be so cheesy. I think Max might go to Mercedes with George.
Yeah, we have to say it now. This is your prediction now. This is going down on the paper.
If I'm going to do a prediction, I would say Max is going to stay at Red Bull because he's got a phenomenal relationship there, knows it inside out. But if they keep losing and that car isn't competitive, that Mercedes car is looking very good all of a sudden.
And if Ricciardo's as bad as Checo, obviously, who would go in then? Is Isaac Hadjar? Will Yuki then? So we can say who we think it's going to be, but we can do this just in case. So you're saying
it's not going to be Yuki. Yuki, for whatever reason, isn't the chosen one. He's not. But he's excited. One.
But of course, so if Perez is now out, would Perez be interested in what have we got? We've got the Audi, the Mercedes, and the Alpine.
Who wants Perez? Why would you have Perez? He's not even saying.
I'm just putting the question. I wouldn't have him.
I'm telling you, if you listen to my response, I wouldn't even entertain having him in a car, even if he brought all the money. Because one of the reasons you keep the old hacks in is because the rookies, they crash the cars more frequently. But Perez probably crashes the car more than anyone else on the grid.
Yep. So he's off to IndyCar. Okay, we're losing Checo completely. So we now go down to this Sauber that's becoming an Audi that have signed Hülkenberg. The other thing in the press all last week was happening. These team people are all getting sacked left, right, and centre. Alpine / Audi have sacked 2 or 3 of their men, and of course they've dropped the Porsche World Sports Car Championship manager. Forget all their names. Who employed Hülkenberg? So Hülkenberg suddenly lost. The bloke that employed him to go to Audi. So who's going to go in Audi Sauber next year alongside Nico Hülkenberg?
Well, I had my money on Carlos Sainz. And obviously
well, now you need to change your mind. That's it.
Well, I think Sauber. I think Audi would want somebody that's been there, done that, and I think Ricciardo could end up being that person.
He's in Red Bull.
No, but he's not. We haven't said
who's
that.
In Red Bull next year now. Well,
I think they're going to take. I think they're going to take one of the young guns into Red Bull. I think they're going to take one of the. I don't think a Hadjar. I don't think.
Well, Lawson to Red Bull and Hadjar to RB. If you want that, you can have that.
Yeah. Okay,
I think Ricciardo did good enough to stay on for another year.
YouTube comments are going to go crazy now, shouting at me. We can't see the comments, by the way. Even though we're live, we can't see the comments.
So,
thank goodness.
Who's joining Hülkenberg in Audi Sauber?
I don't know. I'm all confused now. Well, Ricardo.
I
There you
tell
go.
you,
Ricardo. Who do you think?
it's going to be bloody Bottas, isn't it? It is. It's going to be Bottas.
Oh,
I'm
of course
sorry. I know
yeah,
it's going to be Bottas.
of course it
It
is.
depresses me, but it's going to be Bottas.
Or what
Or
about
when we're going to do Mercedes, you see. I mean, Mercedes. Well,
let's say, well, come on, give me your list because the viewers
I
are
think they'll go
screaming and shouting
Antonelli. I
now.
think they'll go Antonelli.
I don't think they will. I just don't think they
Well,
will.
then you've got
He's
to
so
come up with an
young.
alternative.
He's
You can't
17.
just.
What,
Then you've got
Max
to come up with the alternative.
Max, I never. Those
I
guy
told
plays
you
squash
before last week to write this down. I told you to come up with your final ideas, and
I've written it down.
you're
I've
lost.
got it, and I've got it on my screen in front of me. So the guy who does who I play squash with, he's a bit of a geek, and he was leading the global Tour de France dream team. The online thing, and then he came sixth overall. I'm rubbish at them. I've always been rubbish at them.
Right.
It's like a big sort of game of chess, isn't it? But
Right, so you've got nobody. You've got nobody with George at all. You've got nobody.
Well, it's Antonelli, isn't it? It's going to be Antonelli, isn't it? But I'm just trying to be a little bit. I'm just trying to be a little bit contentious.
Alpine's interesting. Alpine apparently are negotiating to have a Mercedes engine contract for 2026.
Okay.
And Alpine are apparently happy with this. And I think the rumours is it all looks like they're setting up to sell the thing. And so they obviously couldn't sell it with the Alpine engine if Alpine are pulling out. So they're getting a contract sorted out to have Mercedes engines. So then the package of the Alpine Mercedes is something someone will want to buy. Andretti Motorsport. Except they've got Chrysler. That wouldn't work, would it? They wouldn't want the Mercedes engine. But anyone else could buy. Anyway, I think they're going to stick to Jack Doohan at Alpine because he's done a few FP1.
Yeah, he's solid. He's solid as well. Yeah.
So I'm putting Jack Doohan in there.
Yeah.
So who disappears? Who doesn't get a drive? So we lose.
Ocon is gone. We know that.
No, Ocon's at Haas.
Oh, yes, so of course he is. Gone from Alpine, I mean.
We only lose Zhao, K-Mag and Sargent. There's the only three going out.
And we got
Antonelli, Behrman, Lawson, and Doohan come in. Oh, Lawson comes in. Perez is out. We've lost Perez. I forgot about Perez. He's gone.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's go back to the racing. That'll keep us going next. We'll be back next week, part 2, when Paul Woodman works out yet another organising chaos. In Formula 2, the great superstars, Anthony and Behrman, qualified 5th and 15th in Formula 2 with this Prema car. They've still got their woes.
Yeah, but there's a big gap. There's a big gap every week with every race with those two.
The Estonian Paul Aaron, who was leading the championship not that long ago, still hasn't won a race this year, has all sorts of trouble. He's on pole position yet again. I think he's had a couple. Isaac Hadjar was second fastest. In the sprint race, Britain Zach O'Sullivan, 10th fastest in qualifying, on pole for the sprint race, managed to win the 5-lap race in atrocious conditions before it was cancelled. It was postponed in the morning.
I was going to say
they ran it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Paul Aaron, who's running about second or third, broke down again, poor lad, just when he's losing points left, right and centre. Antonelli went from 6th on the grid to 9th. Didn't do too well. That's the main. Sorry, I'm jumping up one. Anthony went from 6th to 6th in his 5 laps. Whereas Ollie came from 14th to 7th. So Ollie Behrman was the biggest overtaker in the sprint race, but then completely made a horlicks of the start of the main race and turned across the front of Zane Maloney on his left. I don't know, he didn't see him or didn't know he was there. Maloney made a very bad start. And then took poor old, the completely innocent, who did he take with him? Pepe Martin. And he's got a 5-place penalty for the next race, Behrman. So Behrman's having a miserable time. Antonelli went from 6th backwards to 9th in the main race. And he's got caught for the second time. The team has been seen on the way to the grid with bits of dry ice falling out of the sign pods. They were caught before. They've already had a 5-place penalty or something warning, suspended. Now they got caught again. So they've got the 5 place that was suspended and added another 5 places. So Antonelli's losing 10 places in the next round in Monza. Quite why they do it twice, I don't know. But Prema are obviously not having a good time in their life. And the same in Formula 3. The Prema boys, always the quickest. They were 11th and 12th fastest. Gabriel Mini and Dino Boganovic but that gave them the front row for the sprint race, which they duly won. So Kramer wins sprint race. Well, yeah, but they were given it. But pole position for the Formula 3 was brilliant. This is a really good Britain story. Callum Voisin on pole, won from pole the main race. Luke Brownie came through the 6th, so 2 Brits in the top 6. And Callum also in the sprint race got from 12th up to 7th. So very good weekend for Callum Voisin. And lots of entertaining, obviously, but
was it good
just
to watch?
depends
other
how your
than
team's going. When it's wet and horrible
wet
conditions.
Yeah.
So many pace. You have a safety car, and of course, it's only 4 minutes they come round in before you see them again.
Yeah.
And so many times you can see the crash in front of us, the opening one. They've cleared it all, but every time the pace car seems to have to do another lap. Every time
Especially
I see
around
Silverstone, wherever, well, it's clear now.
Yeah.
No, we've got to do another lap. Maybe the rule book says you've got to do one more lap after it's all cleared to make doubly sure it's all. I don't know. But then, of course, there's one of
unless it's Michael Massey in Abu Dhabi, then it's okay.
Yeah, all right. No, you can't mention that again. Porsche Supercup was a great battle between Britain's Harry King and Holland's Harry ten Voorde. Voorde having won 4 races to Harry's only 1, but Voorde had a very bad outing last time. Harry's not that far behind. But they were beaten all ends up by Martin Klein and Huub van Eindhoven. So they were actually battling over 3rd. And Harry was ahead all the way. So he was going to claw a few more points back from Ten Voorde. But Ten Voorde, this amazing last-minute lunge into the hairpin, starting the last lap right in front of us. And they exited the hairpin side by side down the hill. And I got my eyes up to Eau Rouge. They went all up Eau Rouge and Pau side by side. Both shot completely off track limits, completely at the top of Pujon. Then rejoined on the straight all the way up the hill, side by side, banging wheels, until Harry finally kept his 3rd place going into the corners at the top of the hill. It's a great entertainment.
You do feel a lot more protected in a sports car than you do in an open top single-seater or Caterham or something like that, Formula Ford.
But false
sense of security, though.
There concludes my on-the-spot reporting from the grandstand.
How many beers? Are you feeling a bit delicate now? Are you okay?
Which day are we talking about? I mean, I'm entertaining. I'm entertaining guests here. I don't want to drink, but it's sort of, you've got to be social with guests of Motor Passion and, entertain.
I have to say, you're very impressive. I think Clarkson wrote something like that in your foreword of your book, that whatever you do, however much you drink the night before, you're always there. Even if we got a 6 a.m. roll call, you're there, and you might be a bit grumpy.
However much I drink, I think you're painting a slightly more drunken picture. Well, I mean, Clarkson's was obviously a huge exaggeration in my wonderful book, Tiff Gear, which is still available very cheaply on YouTube or where you buy things. I forget, on eBay.
Amazon.
Very cheap on Amazon. Did you watch the touring car? So back home, we had the touring car. Nothing else around the world at all. The NASCAR boys had a beginning 2 weekends off. So it was a very quiet world. I watched
the highlights of touring car, and my new best mate Tom Ingram, who follows me on Instagram, I was watching from him, seeing what's happening.
Well, he got the best score. I've got the results, but it's all these new tyres. They have these soft tyre. This because they didn't have it for Thruxton because they don't have the softer tyre. But it causes chaos. This softer tyre. It's about a second and a half quicker or something.
Is it? Wow.
Because, yeah. So I mean, round 1. Race 1 where they qualified, Turkington won, Ingram was 2nd, Ash Sutton was 4th, and Jake Hill 6th. So the big 4 were all in the top 6. But then in race 2, Turkington was 9th, Ingram 4th, Ash 5th, and Jake 10th. Because Josh Cook came through on soft tyres.
Does Croft typically favour the rear-wheel drive or the front-wheel drive?
Rear-wheel drive, always in the past. So but then you see this boost thing. So push the button. Turkington's a lot more because he was 4th in the championship. So Turkington was on pole probably because he had much more of the push. What do they call it? Not push to pass, the extra power button. So that's probably why Turk was on pole and won. But then the second race, he was on the hard tyre like the other top 6 or 7. But Josh Cook and Rob Huff were both of the soft tyres and came through the finish, 1st and 2nd from 8th and 7th on the grid. So it's all mixing it up. And it's great. This is what I love. This is what touring cars used to be.
Too.
With the weight going up and down. And they suddenly went all a bit to, there wasn't much advantage and a little bit of hybrid push last year because it wasn't big enough. And now the hybrid push is more, it's got 60 horsepower instead of 30 or whatever it is.
Who have you raced against? that's currently racing anyone or not in BTCC? Huffy or not? No, he's not that old, is he?
Yeah, Huffy's been around forever.
So you've raced against him or not?
No, I don't know. He's been after me. He wasn't in Super Touring. Then the reverse grid race, Tom Chilton got picked, finished 8th in race 2 and got the pole position and went on to win. I think he's won about 17 BTCC races now. Tom.
Wow.
Wonderful. He's been around. Yeah, he's been around for ages. He always turns up. He's tried so many different teams, and he brings a bit of sponsorship and backing, and finds a good ride for the year. And he's always competitive, never gives up, and so it's quite good to see Tom winning another race. So plenty of entertainment if you're up at Croft. I think they had a bit of rain showers up there. What was the weather like Sunday?
Yeah, it was Sunday was okay actually. Sunday was okay, but Saturday was intermittent.
But it looks, I haven't looked at the points tally, but Ingram definitely got the most points with a 2nd, a 4th, and a 3rd. Ashbury's 2nd best and a 4th, a 5th, and a 4th. Jake Hill bad 6th, 16th, and 5th. And Colin are going to win a 4th and a 14th. So looks like it's back to it's
good.
It alternates every weekend because Jake Hill had the best weekend, didn't it? It's Leicester, wherever it was, and so it looks like it was Ingram and Sutton that had the best weekend, and Turkington, Jack Hill not so much. So it's a great championship. That's going to go right down to the end with much entertainment.
Down to the wire, to the wire. What's up next week?
World Ranch of Finland, the 1,000 lakes. Where they leap through the air at huge long yumps. And the onboards are completely terrifying. They're like fools. They're the fastest stages, I think, on average, on gravel. And they set the car before you wouldn't know what's on the other side. Set the car to the angle that you're going to appear over the top. Incredibly fast sweeping stuff. We've still got the problem of the road sweeping the front people, but that'll be spectacular to watch on the television. MotoGP back home. Of course, we've got MotoGPs. So that's fantastic to go to Silverstone this weekend and watch them. They're always competitive there. And the other race internationally is IMSA sports cars, which is, of course, the same as the Le Mans sports cars, the hybrid Porsches and Cadillacs and Alpine, not over in America, but Round Road America, which is one. And they still have the LP2 cars and the GTs. So Road America, great to watch any car race around there, and that should be spectacular.
Keep your eye on MotoGP and their lap times. What do you think they are?
No idea. They're not even a Formula 3 car, are they? I don't know what Formula 3 record is.
See, it really surprised me. I looked at this the other day, but World Superbike, the fastest around Silverstone is 1:59.3. That was in 2022. That's a lap record. Which is really surprising. 30 odd seconds, 31 seconds slower than a Formula 1 car. That really surprised me. I guess that's just that huge top speed.
Braking distance is like 300 yards at the end of the main straight instead of 50 yards. I mean, there's a long way back.
Yeah. But wow, but that's still quite a lot, isn't it? A quarter slower, 0.25%. And also, you missed probably the highlight of this coming weekend. What's happening in Scotland?
Scotland? Are you doing that bowler thing, are you?
No. That's Iceland. That's the week after. No, it's Caterham racing next week. This weekend up in Knockhill. So what could possibly go wrong up there? They're doing it. Knockhill's one of the few circuits in the world that you can go clockwise and anti-clockwise. So they'll do Saturday clockwise. Sunday they go anti-clockwise. Yeah,
the academies go up there or not? The academies go.
I believe so. We always went up there. We went up there on academy year, so I think so. I hope so.
Well, there you go.
It's really good. Yeah.
If you're in Scotland, head to Knockhill for some entertaining Caterham. There will be clashes. There will be action. There will be.
It's a great place to watch. It is a great place to watch it as well.
Meanwhile, I'm going to start tweeting more about raw beef burgers to get more hits on my Twitter channel than working with you.
Go viral with that instead of talking to me. Thanks for joining us. Sorry we didn't.
For all those that said I'm in hospital, I'm not in hospital. I'm back. I ate it Friday and I'm still